Friends, Jaya Sri Ram. Today we are going to see why the Canadians are burning the churches down all over Canada and also boycotting the Independence Day. Why Canadian Prime Minister is apologizing publicly to Canadians. Why Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is demanding that the Pope from Vatican shall have courage enough to come to Canada and apologize to the First Nations and the Canadians. Why? Let's go through what happened. Why Canadians are so upset about the Catholic Church and especially the residential schools ran by the Catholic churches. Unbelievable. And this is no new. For me, this is the same thing that happened in India. If you ask an African American, they will vouch for it. The similar thing happened in Africa. So this is the clear-cut action plan of these churches and the missionaries as far as I know of or we know of. But let's see why Canadians are burning down the churches. Why Canadians are boycotting the Independence Day. Canada got independence from whom? Is the question. Did they fight a war? No. It was a genocide that was done against the First Nations. And then the Christian missionaries took over Canada. And then what happened? Did they have a good life? No. That's what we are going to see now. The First Nation children forced and taken away from the parents. Can you believe that? The First Nations had no hold on their own children. And they were taken to the residential school. They had no other option but go. At least, as per record, 150,000 children were snatched from the parents and taken to the residential school. And when we speak to the survivors, you heard of Holocaust, but you talk about the First Nation genocide. Unbelievable. This is only we are talking in Canada. Similar thing, no different in America. Okay, we will go through that in detail in some other video. But, here in Canada, they were snatched from the parents. And the kids were told how good the place, the residential school is. And the survivors, when they were interviewed, they say the children of then and the adults of now, older adults rather, okay, and senior citizens, they say they really felt the residential school is a better place to go by the way it was sold by the Christian missionaries and the nuns and the so-called fathers and the, missionary mechanism, okay, per se. And when they got there, there was a nightmare waiting for them. What was the rule they had to go through? Okay, it's unbelievable, folks. You will find the same thing. If you go to Assam, Mizoram, wherever the Christian missionaries dominate, you will find a similar thing in Goa, genocide. And in fact, one you don't know is the Tamil Nadu genocide, okay, by the missionaries, which we will be coming out of the video shortly. And similar, there is a pattern you will see, Africa. But you know what, when the children went there, they were strictly told by the nuns and the so-called fathers, they cannot worship their native God. They cannot practice their native language. They cannot practice their native religion. They cannot play even the native games. Children were told they cannot do any games that can remind them of their origin. Can you believe that? So in the game time, they were monitored by these nuns to make sure they are not doing any bamboo work, which is the traditional work of the First Nations of Canada. Can you believe that? And if they caught the children speaking in their native language, they got a severe punishment. Okay? And in fact, the punishments were so cruel, they were taken into the kitchen, like putting the hand on a burning coal. These are the children, folks. Can you believe that? And parents had no access to their children at all. In fact, one of the note that was found from one of the residential schools in British Columbia says to the parents that you can come and pick up your child for a couple of days from Christmas, on Christmas. Okay? And if you don't deliver back the child on so-and-so day, you will never be able to see your children again. Like this, open threats were made. And you may ask, what happened to the law? There was no law. Law was a white man thing that was ruled by the Christian missionaries. And these people had no other place to go other than doing what these missionaries were ordering them to do. Can you believe that? And in fact, the whites there were saying the First Nation children that take the black out of you. Okay, that was the take the black out of you. Folks, can you believe that? Take the black out of you so that you can behave white, you can talk white, you can pray white. Okay, and guess what? One of the graves that was found shortly before in Kamloops residential school. Okay, this was about 215 was found before, unmarked graves. 215 was found before, and then 700 more were found. Then so many other more were found. You know, you may think this is all it is, but nobody knows how many children are in each grave. And these are all unmarked graves of the First Nations. There was 60% chance that your child will not make it coming out of the school, residential school. The school had nothing to do with education. The school was to brainwash the children, to forget their native language, to forget their native way of worshipping, to forget their native culture, native games, everything, and cut their ancestry, relationship with their ancestry. Okay, the children who were coming out of the residential school as survivors, many of them started hating their own culture. Okay, they started disassociating with their families. They started to believe that they are inferior. So they wanted to behave white. They wanted to talk white. They wanted to practice white. They wanted to pray white. They were told, Jesus, you pray, otherwise or else you are gone. You are just a number. In fact, these children were given numbers in the residential school. They were not called by the name, their own name. Okay? In fact, if they are if they are called by the name, that was a fake Christian name that was given to them by the missionary. Okay? So that they can forget their names even. Can you believe that? Okay, they will be called number 52. Yes, sir. Kind of thing. Okay? And in fact, the survivor goes to say, if the nuns or the principal or the teachers, no teacher was there, of course it was run by the religious institution of Catholic churches, and if they catch these children calling in their original name or talking in the language, native language, or sometimes these kids after the midnight when nobody were there, they used to murmur and pray together, okay, to their God, thinking about their parents. But if they are caught, they were in for a severe punishment. And many of the kids were so depressed. Many of them got hit by the train. Many of them died by the diseases because they were depressed. They cannot go to school, home. They cannot see the parents. In fact, one of the girl survivors says that I was at least little bit happy that me and my brother came together to the residential school. But as soon as we came, they separated us, saying that boys will go here and girls will be here. I never saw them again, and I could never communicate with my brother after that. Can you believe that? This was like, wow. This is what the First Nations has to go through with the Catholics. Churches run schools. And that's why people are upset. And see, many of the children who were missing, so-called, their graves are now being found in Canada. That was operated and organized by the Catholic churches. And that's why people are getting on the road now, folks, getting on the road and burning down the churches. Burning down the churches. I'm saying people are boycotting their Sunday prayers. What Sunday prayer? You will teach love here and burn there. And you will teach love here and kill the children there. The children were physically tortured. You know how they torture, how they abuse physically in Vatican. Vatican has more than $5 billion settlement outside the court. Similar abuse took place in this residential school with these children. And in fact, one of the survivors goes to say that her grandma gave her a beautiful orange color, saffron dress. Okay, and you know what? This girl was so happy and going to the residential school wearing that dress. And as soon as she entered there, the nuns told, you shall get rid of this dress and you had to go to your uniform. Okay, and after that she never saw the dress again. Never. They threw that off. And that's why, she longed for her lifetime for wearing the orange colored dress, folks. Can you believe that small desires of the children were quashed? And that's why in Canada, even today, the First Nation brothers and sisters of ours, they celebrate Orange Shirt Day. Orange Shirt Day. Can you believe that? And that's why the churches that is being burned down today across Canada have the fingerprints in orange or red, symbolizing the Orange Shirt Day, or the massacre that was done by the Catholic churches. Massacre of children done by the Catholic churches. And Justin Trudeau, the Canadian PM, said, I am not cancelling the virtual Independence Day celebration, but I know many people have pain on this day of independence. I can say you one thing, folks, we from India feel the pain. I as an Indian, born Indian, from Bharat Marg, we at Bharat Marg, we feel the pain of our First Nation brothers and sisters. We stand with them. That's why we appreciate the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau coming and apologizing, and his demand seeking the Pope to come and apologize also. But I don't think he will have courage enough to do so. But Bharat Marg stand with the indigenous leaders of Canada, our brothers and sisters. The churches that were vandalized, the churches that were burned down had marks of 215 to mention that 215 children's graves were found initially. We stand with these indigenous leaders who went through the difficult time as children, going through the residential schools with no law run by the Catholic churches, and tolerate all the abuses and came out as survivors and still fighting for their religion and their way of living, culture. Bharat Marg stand with the indigenous leaders, demand that each of these survivors shall be compensated. We all know these compensations will not bring the survivor's childhood. These compensations will not remove the trauma as a children these First Nation kids went through. But you know what? This means something. So Bharat Marg stands with the First Nations and the indigenous leaders in demanding the Canadian government, the Pope and the Catholic churches should honestly come forward and compensate each of these survivors $25 million, because that means something. When we hear these things, the school children are terrorized if they know the real history. We stand with our indigenous brothers and sisters because they are ours. We want them to know from Bharat Marg that we, the Indians from India, went through the similar torture like you went through, or African people went through in Africa, just because of our color of the skin. You know what? The good times are ahead. And we will make sure the culprits are punished, and we stand with you. Jai Sri Ram.